Good evening, everyone. This is Rita Boccuzzi, also known as Mama Rita Money. I'm here tonight to talk to you about getting comfortable in the uncomfortable conversations around money, around self-sabotage, around topics that make us kind of feel uncomfortable when we're discussing them so that we can get comfortable in our everyday. Having authentic, real conversations, it is my true belief that when we are authentic, genuine, real, vulnerable, is how we can support each other. It's actually how we grow stronger and have, courage. And what is courage? Courage is really just showing up even when you're scared to death. And I'm going to say, I know even my very first show, I did not want to show up. I was shaking in my boots. And the only reason why I did it was because I knew I was committed to my host and to the production manager that helped me launch this. So I did it for others more than myself. And the reality is, you know what? I know that we're all in this world together to grow and learn. And I think that when I can share that with you and be vulnerable and start having topic discussions that, might otherwise not happen in the world, it just starts to make it more comfortable for us. And today I have an amazing, amazing woman that will be with us, Lauren Archer. She is a certified hypnotherapist and has been for over 28 years. And really this discussion of self-sabotage I don't even really hear it discussed that much in the world. Because one, maybe we may not be admitting it. We'll find out more from Lauren, more about that. I'm all about learning self-mastery and self-development. I believe that when we develop ourselves, we grow stronger, we grow better, we build our own personal economy in a world where really we're being sold to and told to do things that are not what we really intend for ourselves. Basically we're being hypnotized, and we see it every day, right? In the sales, but wait, there's more. So how come people get triggered? How do we start helping ourselves? How do we start engaging and being empowered? Because this is a tool and a resource that can be used for good. And as we've seen in our world today, not good. I'm just going to put it politely that way for right now. And we're going to have, because this topic can go broad and wide, and I want to really get to our amazing guest, who is a mindfulness coach and keynote speaker. She's a heart math coach, certified coach to be specific, and a clinical hypnotherapist. And she holds regular workshops. She's a clinical hypnotherapist, and what I love about Lauren is that she is so well-rounded in helping her clients and meeting them where they're at so that they can succeed, be empowered. And we're going to talk a little bit about how we're self-sabotaging around our emotional eating, especially with COVID. I don't know about you all. The COVID-19 caught me, but not with the dreaded disease, but the pounds that I put on, because though I felt okay and I felt strong and I wasn't physically affected, I obviously was emotionally affected. And so I'm going to bring Lauren in so that we can have a little bit more conversation around these areas where I'm going to say she is the master. And so she can teach us the mastery of emotional eating and self-sabotage. Lauren, thank you so much for joining our wonderful guests this evening.
Thank you so much for having me, Rita. It's such an honor. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
It's great to be here. And I love, the notion of taboo talks. I was, most people don't know this about me, but when I was in my 20s, I got a vanity plate on my car, and the license plate had the word taboo in it. And people are like, why are you doing that? What's that all about? And I love, what I learned is that a taboo is a set of rules and behaviors around something that is powerful. So if there's, so what's powerful in our society, right? Money,
Money.
sex, relationships, food could be. And so we have taboos around how we behave in relationship with those powerful objects, situations, things, whatever they are. So yeah, it'll be fun to go there with you tonight. Looking forward to
I
it.
love it. I love it. This evening is so special to me because really being teaching people and helping people learn to be mindful around the taboos. And that doesn't mean that you don't discuss them. It doesn't mean that you run from them or hide from them. For me, it's more about facing that uncomfortable conversation, which may be a taboo. Culturally, definitely growing up for me, it was around the money. Money wasn't discussed, especially for young ladies. It wasn't appropriate, or children to be asking questions. And we've developed these mindsets, as I'm sure you know, fairly young. Like when we are taught these behaviors around these sacred taboos, if you will, it changes the directions of our lives. But I
Absolutely.
honestly, it doesn't have to end there, right? It doesn't mean that we have to be that way. And
Right.
I'd love to hear a little bit more about your take on how, if we say, well, it's always been that way with my family, or this is what I've been taught, or this is what I know. How can we be more open to the self-mastery? And if it's emotional eating, you know, what can we do?
Yeah. Well, it's a huge topic right there. But what you said is so right on. And it's not only what we've been taught verbally or explicitly, right?
Mhm.
So children are in what they call a hypnotic state or a theta brainwave state up until they're 7 years old. And so everything that happens in our lives up to age 7, we are learning, we're experiencing like a sponge, right? We're just taking it all in, but it's not going in our little literal analytical brain. It's going into our nervous system. It's going into our body. We're picking up the emotional climate of the people around us and how they treat us and how we believe we are in relationship to our world. That affects everything in our lives moving forward. How can we be open to change? First of all, recognizing that that's going on, that most of our awareness is unconscious. And, it's a lifelong journey. It really is. It's like, we're
It
like
is.
onions. We keep peeling away layers, right? It's like, okay, what's behind that layer? Yeah. And so with emotional eating, I mean, that's a huge one. I mean, I put on COVID weight too. I'm now that the seasons have changed a little bit, I'm back to because I know how to flip the switches on and off in my brain. And that is something that, for those of you who have been dealing with emotional eating or self-sabotaging habits, whether it's shopping too much, right? I mean, you deal a lot with money. A lot of people, spend too much. It could be alcohol. How many of you are having that daily glass of wine that turns into 2 or 3? I've been there, right? It happens. I mean, it happens to people who don't think this kind of thing happens to.
Yes.
And so beginning to recognize what's going on and then learning how to pull the right strings in your own consciousness, how to shift your associations and your attention. That's part of what I teach. There's a lot to it, but yeah, it's fun.
Yes, I can imagine that. Definitely, it's a process, and I love that. It's the awareness. I think for myself personally is like once I'm aware, sometimes I feel like I can do something about it to pull the next trigger, and sometimes I just can't.
Right.
I'm not in that space or place. So when you're not in that space or place, like you have to be wanting to reach out or figure out how to do it. And usually we can't do it on our own.
That's so true. Yeah.
It's about being open to reaching out to someone like yourself.
And so what happens with a lot of people, this is one of the biggest, it's the biggest thing I hear, especially around habit change, emotional eating, whatever. It's like people wake up in the morning and they say, today's the day, right? I'm not going to do that tonight. And they go forward with that thought pattern. And then it's as if something takes over our bodies. It's like 5 o'clock or whatever time it is, right? All of our willpower goes out the window. We're emotionally depleted. We're drained from the day. We want that little fix. And then boom, it goes out the window. But unfortunately, that sets off that cycle. The cycle of self-loathing, the cycle of mistrust of self, because when you say you're going to do something and then you don't follow through with it, you are harming your own relationship with yourself, and your word doesn't have the authority that it would if you say, I'm going to do this and then follow through. But here's the important part. It's not just you, because your intellect, right? Which is only one small part of your mind. Your intellect is the one that makes the decision, or that, knows better. So many people say, I know what to do. I know how to eat. I know what I'm supposed to be doing. I just can't seem to get myself to do it. Well, that quote unquote knowing is really only accessing a limited part of your psyche, which is that intellectual part. But what is the part that throws us off? It's our emotions. Yeah. And it's, it's our body. There's different aspects that we have to self, that when you learn how to peel back the layers and understand that, you can motivate yourself to do just about anything, which is great.
Yeah, I was just going to say, sometimes I think of this formula so that for growth is like exploring, then expanding, and engaging, which then elevates you, which hopefully
love
that the point of enjoyment, right?
Oh, so, beautiful. 5 letters. Wait, do that again. I want to hear that again.
Explore, right? So you got to seek so that you can understand, be curious, yes. Expand, learn more so that you can grow more, engage. You have to, if you could be a lifelong student of study and never graduate the course, right?
True.
So we need to take some sort of action, even if it's a baby step or maybe a habit. I know that you have like 6 or a bunch of habits that people can learn, and then maybe even stack them. So engage, then elevate. That's when it's like you start shifting, right? So I'm going to say I started stacking some habits for myself to keep training myself. I made a commitment to myself to be mindful. I'm going to exercise, and I just started with like 10 easy minutes, right?
Brilliant.
Even if I just get my shoes on and walk, I'm not going to be dismissive of myself because I didn't feel like it that day or whatever. If it was emotional, whatever, I was going to be mindful of that. But I just kept the action of getting up and getting my shoes on to exercise. So I engaged like that. And then a shift started to happen in that habit. And I started exercising. And I thought, well, maybe if I do 5 minutes more today. And if I didn't feel like it, I didn't.
Right.
And then, you know what? I've been starting to feel stronger and healthier. And I'm actually, interestingly enough, which probably is not so interesting to you, making better choices, better food choices since I've been doing that.
Oh, absolutely. It is very interesting. It's always been fascinating to me. It's like the more you don't exercise, the more tired you become. The more you don't eat healthfully, the more you crave, crappy foods. But the opposite of that is also true, right? The more you start to engage in the habits that are nurturing and nourishing to your body, mind, heart, and soul, the more you start to feel better, the more you want to. But I want to unpack what you said, though, with those 5 things, because that is really cool. So the first one was explore, right? So curiosity. So that's being willing to recognize that you don't know. Yeah. So many people, we think we know, and then we get frustrated with ourselves because then we're not following through, and that loop closes, and we don't, we think we know it all, so we're not going to look at it. It's like, well, I must just be defective that way, right? But no, being willing to explore is beautiful. And what was your second one?
Expand.
So learning more. Yep. Expanding your awareness in multiple dimensions. To say, maybe I've been looking just at this area. Maybe I can expand and get information from different sources. Okay. I like that. What was number 3?
Engage.
Okay. So engage, that could be engaging yourself or others, right?
Yep.
Yeah. I wanted to put in the piece about non-judgment and compassion in there somewhere. That's probably either in exploring. I think that's the exploring step,
Or,
because
yeah.
you want to look at what's going on without criticizing yourself,
Yes.
because that takes practice. If you haven't learned how to do that, to be kind with yourself and be willing to look at, like, what I liken it to, like opening up a deep hole and going, what's in there, right? Like in my subconscious mind, in my psyche, like, what have all those thoughts been going on in there? Why have I been behaving this way? And most people don't want to look in that hole, right? Because it's full of dark and scary things. But if you can look there and be compassionate and curious, it's like, oh, would you look at that? Isn't that interesting? Stay neutral. All right, so we got explore, expand, engage. So that's, working with yourself and others. Elevate. So the elevate is about energy to me. And when we're in a self-sabotaging pattern, whether it's, again, emotional eating, spending too much, gambling, drinking, whatever it is, we often, oh shoot, it just went. Does that ever happen to you?
All the time. And I like to say, it'll come back to you. It's just
It will. Yes. So help me refresh my memory.
We were talking about elevating and shifting.
Elevating energy. Right. So when you're in those behavior patterns, it's usually because your energy is depressed. You're feeling low level energy, whether it's sadness, anger, frustration, worry, doubt, fear. And we engage in those habits to try to raise our energy level up to make ourselves feel better, right? So think of, like, if you're down here and you're feeling like, oh, my life sucks, things are terrible, all these, I'm in a victim mode, all these things are happening. What can I do to make myself feel better? And so what we're trying to do is elevate our energy, right? So there's your E word, elevate. And all we have is what we've learned.
Yep.
And the brain only has what it's learned. So if you've learned that when you're feeling crappy and you go reach for a glass of wine, or you go reach for a donut, and that elevates your energy, then you're going to keep doing that pattern until you retrain your mind some other way to elevate your energy. Right. And there's that enjoyment piece, your last 5. I just love that. It's so brilliant, Rita. I want to borrow that.
You may borrow that. I'm having fun with words, because words are so powerful, right?
They are. Yeah.
And they can build nations and crush.
Yes.
Really world hope. And so to counteract that, when you were talking, I like to think of, what are words superheroes would use, and what are words, like when you started to say worry, doubt, fear, regret, I'm expanding. I call that the words of the corruption crew.
Yeah. And they are, I call them catabolic, right? They are destructive, catabolic, negative. Yep. The corruption crew. I like that.
Right. And my kids laugh because, I would go, don't let the corruption crew come after you. Right. It makes me think of like Marvel Comics or something like that, where, there's these superheroes, and it is real life. Like when you think about these battles that we have and the words, and when you were looking down into the hole, I was like thinking of the words that would come up, that would be coming after me. And we're self-criticism. It's actually the biggest thing that we fear.
Yes, it's so true. Yeah. And that's why, engaging, working with someone else, I can't tell you how many people that I have worked with that deal with, if you've heard of the imposter syndrome, right? Yes. Many people have heard of the imposter syndrome. I guess as human beings, just recognize that we all have fears. We all have those dark places. We all have shadows, skeletons in our proverbial closets. And all of the darkness, the shadows, the, doubt, fear, criticism, it's all just wanting to be loved. Right.
So what made you start on this journey? Like, was there a personal story behind all this? To really
a bunch of them. Yeah, I was trying to narrow it down to one. I guess the first one was probably in high school. I started high school at 14, and everybody's nervous and worried in high school, but I was an only child, and the whole social thing, trying to figure out how to fit in, I just didn't know what to do. Luckily, a friend turned me on to Dr. Wayne Dyer's book, Your Erroneous Zones. And he talked about how worry and guilt are useless emotions, which was so completely counter to how I was raised in the Lutheran church. It was all about, it was a certain way. I felt guilty. Yeah. Felt guilty all the time.
In many cultures, it really crosses boundaries.
It really does. Yeah. So I couldn't talk about this with my parents. So I started doing these little mindfulness games. I didn't call it that, but I was literally playing games in my mind. I was like, well, okay, I'm going to pretend. I'm just going to pretend that I have these beliefs, and I'm going to pretend that people like me and see what happens. And I was blown away. I mean, really, lo and behold, my relationships started changing. The way I started feeling about myself started changing. But, this was back in 76. I graduated high school in 1980. And so there was not a lot written on this topic.
Yeah.
So I went exploring, could not find what I wanted in psychology because it was all about psychological disorders. The field of positive psychology didn't exist. So I went into communications and was working in communications. And I was in the back of a dark ballroom. We did these big stage shows for Fortune 500 companies. And I was on the production team. And a person was walking across the stage being handed a bonus check. He was a sales rep for a pharmaceutical sales company. And that bonus check was for $30,000. Which was more than I was making in a year. And so at the time, it was just this big kind of like, wait, whoa, okay, what's important? What do I want to invest my life energy into?
Yep.
What's my life worth? What's my time worth? How do I want to make a difference? So all those big questions came up. It wasn't about the money. It was about value. And of course, when you start asking those deep questions, you have to start asking, well, what's the meaning of life? And who am I? And why am I here? And all those things, right? So 10 years later, right, at the end of the decade of my 20s, that's when I started exploring more. Well, I've been exploring consciousness since my mid-20s and then teaching in my late 20s. And then I found hypnotherapy in my early 30s. And I've been sold ever since. I love it. It's magical. It seems so magical. How with closing your eyes, just a few minutes of something, and then boom, you can have a completely different experience. So it's not magic, but it's pretty cool.
And that's why I brought you here, because I agree. Consciousness, one of the things that I have been finding more and more as I teach, and I try to do it in a very diversified way. And the diversified way really is that it's 80% mindset, right? Mindset and mind shifts, perspectives, and 20% skills.
Yeah, that's true. Well, one of my favorite quotes is Woody Allen, 80% of success is showing up. And, right? So showing up, being present with that expectation that I am here and, there's going to be a positive result, whatever happens, right?
Right. Yeah. No. I just want to acknowledge Bettina out there. She's saying, yay team. And she's excited to see us here together and showing up. And really, that's the whole point, is we're here showing up for other people. I think one of the questions that I get that you do as well, or have heard, is, when my spouse is, or my partner is, or my family environment, I'm going to say, is not showing up in the same way that I have, or what do I do? Like, especially around money, they're like, oh, but they're not on the same bandwagon. Well, I'm going to say, I learned the hard way, and you model for you. And they may come along, and some friends may drop away.
Yes.
So, some may stay, some may go. The reality is, you be true to you. and you do what's right for the sake of doing the right thing in the world so that we can model for one another. And to me, that sounds like what you did when you started teaching this. So I know we're almost down to.
Is it?
It's
Gosh, it goes so fast.
I know it does. And we're going to definitely do this again. But what I really would like, I know you have 6-word lessons and a book in changing your habits. I mean, I can't even believe 6 words. Actually, I kind of can, because I've been playing this game without even realizing till I saw that just now, that 6-word lessons to change your habits and 100 lessons to stop self-sabotage, to get to start with self-mastery. I think that's an amazing book that everybody should have in their home.
Thank you.
And I'm going to
it's a great easy read. It's one of those fun little, just flip through it. You could pick a lesson a day and just,
Oh my gosh. See, and that's what makes it. So sometimes things they're simple, but they aren't always easy. And that's why I think depending on where you're at, being mindful and conscious of yourself, to be kind to yourself, even if you're just going to say, I'm going to be kind to myself. I am a kind person when you journal. What kind of other tips do you have for our guests today? I know you have your beautiful offering of, free consultation and a free downloadable guided audio program, which I think is an amazing gift. And then they can reach you at laurenarcher.live.
Yeah.
And it's right there.
That happens to be my email too, laurenarcher@live.com. So email me, go to my website, call me, whatever. Yes, wide open. I do complimentary consultations. But tips, to remember that your intellect is not your mind. Mm-hmm. And your mind encompasses your entire body, your heart, your soul, your energy. And so when you're trying to make a change, it's not all up here. It's all of this.
Yeah.
Quick little tip.
That's a beautiful, beautiful tip. And I don't know if you had any last thoughts or things that were on your mind that maybe you wanted to share.
Well, I'd love to share. I mean, I just think the work that you're doing, Rita, is so valuable. As women, I wasn't taught financial education. I have a daughter. I would love to see her learn more. There is so much more. And one of my favorite quotes, my husband and I both are fans of Tony Robbins. And he said, if you want to learn something, or if you want to get better at something, that's what he said. If you want to get better at something, make a study of it. And that's what you're doing for people. Is, money is something that hits so close to home, and you're inviting them to make a study of it. And so I just really want to honor you for that. That's what I do with consciousness. If you're stuck, if you're self-sabotaging, talk to me. We'll make a study of it. We'll get you to the other side.
That's the foundational piece. Like when they come to my workshops, for me, I'm not that coach. I'm not the hypnotherapist, but I have gone through that process to help better myself, to strengthen my mind, to strengthen myself, to be the role model, being taught by professionals like yourself, so that this way I can elevate and grow, to be able to teach that piece. And when people come and say, I had no idea, it's so much easier for them when they already have that groundwork layered, because they just blow through it so much faster and they grow so much faster. And so I just want to say thank you for what you're doing, because it really does make a difference in people's lives so that they can be empowered. They can control their personal economy, which includes self-mastery, to show up. And when we show up that way, each one of us is like that drop in the bucket of the community.
Yes.
And lo and behold, we're changing the world one person at a time, to change our personal economies, to change our national economy, to change our global economy. And it is happening.
It is.
Like you.
It is. I love it. Thanks so much for having me, Rita. It's been great to be here.
I'll look forward to talking to you soon. You take care.
Thanks. You too.
Bye.